Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Grants Info Session. My name is Casey Paquette, and I am the Outreach Lead for the Financials Transformation, and I'm going to get this session started for us. So first, I'm going to go over a little bit about the agenda. Today, we have a few different objectives. We're going to share a little bit more about the info sessions, what you may have missed in the previous info sessions, as well as where you can find previous recordings. We're also going to go over the enterprise transformation overview, as well as a little bit of information about the financials transformation, and then what you're all here for, grants. So first we'll have a little introduction about grants management in Workday. You'll be able to see a little bit about the terminology changes and what grants management will look like, as well as see a live demo from two of our analysts on the project. Then at the end, we'll have time for Q&A. You'll be able to submit your questions through the chat box. This is our safe harbor slide. This is just reiterating that this process is an iterative process. It will change a little bit along the way as we learn more about Georgia Tech's needs and how Workday will be configured to our financial processes. So while this information is accurate today, of course, it could look a little bit different at Go Live. So let's talk a little bit more about these campus info sessions. So these campus info sessions are open to all campus financial users. They are meetings scheduled to highlight different parts of the process areas that we are implementing with Workday. The first session started back in August with Workday Financials Overview and an overview on the FDM. Then in October, we covered expenses. Right now, we're covering grants, of course. In March, you can look forward to learning a little bit more about procurement in Workday. And then in May, we'll talk about reporting. Within each series of these sessions, we have 3 to 4 different info sessions. 3 of them are typically in person, and then the 4th is the webinar, such as this one. All of the webinars are recorded and then posted onto our website at the end for you to view at any time. So to set some expectations, these sessions are not training, so training will be available in the spring. The goal of these sessions is to get your feet wet, to learn a little bit more about what Workday looks like, what some of the terminology changes are, to give you a good understanding about Workday before training is released. So what about training? Our training model is based on 3 different tiers. There's structured learning, social learning, and experiential learning. The structured learning is probably things that you're most familiar with, such as web-based trainings and instructor-led trainings, things that could be in person or maybe you log on to a webinar. And then we also have social learning, so things such as our Guru Network, having open lab sessions and Workday challenges. And then finally, experiential learning. So we're putting a lot of effort into creating things like job aids and tutorials, quick reference guides, different videos and demos that will allow you to learn at your own pace based on what task you're trying to do at that time. All of the training is expected to be released this spring around April, and the transformation website will be the hub where you can go to learn more about training and register for the courses you need. Next, I will hand it over to Sandy Mason, who will give you a little overview of the enterprise transformation as well as the financials program.
Thank you, Casey. I am Sandy Mason, Senior Director of Grants and Contracts Accounting. My role in the ERP project is Grants Process Owner. If you've attended previous information sessions, you've seen some of this overview information already. Within the Enterprise Transformation Project, there are 3 components: financials, which is the move to Workday; HCM, which is the University System of Georgia's One Connect initiative. Georgia Tech will be moving to an instance of PeopleSoft that all other USG schools are already working within, and that will be coming up in the next several months. And finally, Light, is the Enterprise Reporting Initiative. That is a homegrown reporting repository at Georgia Tech. Currently, student reporting is live, and if you'd like to take a look, you can go to lite, L-I-T-E, .gatech.edu. This slide gives you an idea of where we are in the project timeline. For financials, we are currently in the test phase. During this phase, a variety of business transactions and integrations are being tested for functionality, integration, and reporting capabilities using this new cloud-based system. Financials is scheduled for a July 2019 launch, with HCM following behind in the December 2019, January 2020 timeframe. And finally, Lite is launching financial and HR reporting capabilities in parallel with both the Workday and HCM initiatives. A little bit of background on the enterprise transformation projects. Workday is Workday is the software that we're using for financials. To highlight some of the functionality within this cloud-based system, it is configurable. So we are not able to customize, but we can make some decisions on how it is configured, and all customers have the same experience. It updates twice every year, once in the fall, once in the spring, which allows us to remain competitive with the latest technology. There's a Workday community where customers can come together to add requests for functionality called brainstorms, and also to vote on these brainstorms to influence the roadmap and where Workday will focus their attention. And finally, the interface is highly intuitive and the system is user-friendly. Therefore, if you can Google, you can Workday. As far as the financial transformation goals, you've probably seen these in the past. They have not changed. First is to foster collaboration and transparency, and that will result in financial compliance. We want to streamline and standardize processes for the end users. We want to improve reporting. We want to reduce redundancies and inefficiencies. And finally, we want to enhance accessibility. And finally, just an overview of the scope of the Workday Financials project. These indicate what is moving into Workday. Today, we are focusing on grants management. In the past, we've already touched on financial accounting and expenses, with more to come. And then finally, some design highlights from Workday. That the built-in feature is Workday commitments, which we used to call pre-encumbrances. Sub-award, post-award financial routing and payment will all be within Workday. We are collaborating with the Office of Sponsored Programs in that regard. And finally, there will be an enhanced approval routing capability all throughout the Workday experience. At this point, I will hand off to Don Cochran, who is the grants area lead.
Thank you, Sandy. My name is Don Cochran. I am one of the grants analysts here in the Enterprise Resource Planning team. And before joining the ERP, I worked for a number of years in grants and contracts accounting. There are so many questions that you must have if you're watching this program today. These might include what is involved in Workday grants management? How will it work? How will this impact resident instruction versus GTRI? What are the benefits of Workday? Where's the PEB report? What are these work tags? and which systems will be replaced by Workday. Before we continue, let's consider who all is involved in grants management. We know that we have research professionals across campus. We know that there are administrative resources in the colleges and labs directly supporting these research professionals. We know that we have pre-award offices that include the Office of Sponsored Programs and the Office of Industry Engagement. And we also have post-award central offices, including Grants and Contracts Accounting, GTRI Project Support and Accounting, GTRI Project Support, and GTRI Accounting. And now we're going to watch a quick video that will share some of the basic concepts of Workday Grants Management. Now, let's go and look at award line, and grant more closely. The award is the core concept and function in Workday Grants Management. We can create an award for each notice of award that we receive from the sponsor. The award allows us to store important information such as the sponsor, the begin and end dates, and the funded amount. Each award will have one or more grants. Just as today, we often have many sub-projects, we can also have many grants. We would have a prime grant, we might have cost share grants, sub-award grants, participant support grants, and grants for collaborating researchers. The award line allows us to associate the grant to the award. The award line allows us to store things about a grant that we cannot store on the grant itself. We can store billing instructions, indirect cost instructions, for instance. The grant is the work tag that is used to capture costs. You may remember that a work tag is an attribute or label used in Workday to indicate the business purpose of a financial transaction. We can charge the grant. We cannot charge an award. We cannot charge an award line. Again, we charge the grant directly. The grant driver specifies related work tags such as the cost center, class, function, fund, and other related work tags. So to recap, one award has one or more award lines as required, and each award line has one grant. So let's consider what's not changing. We know that Workday Financials is an accounting system, but it's not a research administration system. So we'll need to continue to utilize some of our systems that we have in place today, such as grants.gov to search for funding. We'll use Cayuse and e-routing to prepare and route proposals. We'll continue to use the OSP contract information systems to reference contracts. And we'll use the OSP subaward system to enter subaward requests. Yes, we'll continue to use this SPD, or Salary Planning and Distribution System, which is a part of PeopleSoft HCM. And we've decided to continue to use Deltek CostPoint for GTRI so that we can service many of our federal contracts and the regulations that go with those. So now let's consider actually what is changing specifically. One thing we're excited about is the ability to assign grant managers to grants. Today we can assign a PI to a project, but in the future we'll be able to do both, assign a PI and a grant manager who will be typically a financial administrator that works with the researcher. Next, today we have budget revision, an application in PeopleSoft. This application will be replaced by budget amendments for organization in Workday. The functionality will be very similar to what we have today. Also, in Workday, we'll be able to enter requests to ask for a new grant or to change the name of an existing grant. And this will be a neat feature in Workday. The PEB report is something that we know we must replace. The PEB report is designed around fund and project. We will need a report in Workday that's designed around award and grants. So we're actively working to re-engineer this report and create a new report that gives us information about budgets and expenses, as well as obligations, commitments, balances, and transactions. We recognize that this type of reporting capability is very important to most everyone listening, and we want you to know that it's being addressed as a part of this financial transformation project. The report will be rebuilt, and the aim is to have similar functionality to what we have today, with opportunities for improvement. Another change we'll see is award ID will replace fund code, as well as grant ID will replace project ID. Also, grant names will be very important, and we'll talk more about this in a few slides. Workday will provide new workflow processes to support sub-award purchase orders and their subrecipient invoices. Workday offers a new capability called spend restrictions that we can apply to grants. This will allow us to govern the types of charges that might be allocated to a grant. We might have a grant that restricts travel, or a grant that is specific to only an expense like equipment. Next, where today we have several different processes to move costs in our accounting system. In Workday, we'll only have two processes, which make up our unified cost transfer process. And those are Workday journals and Workday accounting adjustments. We think it'll be much simpler. And both of these will include electronic approval routing. Don't forget, for SPD, we will need to continue to use personal cost transfers. As far as GTRI, because they're going to continue to use Deltek Cost Point, they'll not need to use the award functionality in Workday, but they will use grants. And so they will be able to have a grant manager on each grant. They will be able to apply spend restrictions to the grants. And most importantly, they will have another work tag called the Workday GTRI charge code that they'll use for integrations and to make charges in Workday. Next, back to grant names and award IDs. Each award ID will have an alpha indicator of AWD dash followed by a 6-digit auto-generated sequential number. Each grant ID will have an alpha indicator of GR followed by an 8-digit auto-generated sequential number. In Workday, you can search for a grant either by the grant ID, the PI name, or by text from the grant title. So it's important that each grant is distinctly titled or named. We're incorporating a new prefix for each grant that will help classify the type of grant These prefixes include prime grant, cost share, subaward, participant support, and the name of the collaborating PI. We're working to make sure that our projects in PeopleSoft are distinctly named so that when we import them into Workday, we will have very clear names for our grants. We're also working to create projects in PeopleSoft so that when we import into Workday, we'll have subawards, a grant for each subaward. And remember, you'll be able to use the request framework or create request process to change the name of these grants in Workday. Here we see a comparison of PeopleSoft chart fields versus Workday work tags. We can see that in PeopleSoft we had a business unit of GT. In Workday, the comparative value would be a company, or CO503. In PeopleSoft we had a fund code. You might have used something like RH172 for a sponsored fund. In Workday, that would be an award, something like AWD-001417. In PeopleSoft, we saw speed types or projects, which might have looked like 36566HA. This will be a grant in Workday, and it might be labeled GR2. And also notice the prime grant prefix that we've placed into the title of this grant. Department ID, a value you saw in PeopleSoft, you'll now see cost center. Class, where we had this in PeopleSoft, will also have class in Workday, although the class fields or classes will be at a higher level than we have today. And then program, something we had in PeopleSoft, will be replaced by function in Workday. Now we're going to watch another quick video that will summarize some of the things we just looked at. Thank you for listening. Now we get to have Kevin Ellis and Serena Simpson come and share with us a grants demonstration.
Thank you, Don. So Don did a great job of giving you some information about Workday. Now we have an opportunity to take this system out for a test drive. Again, my name is Kevin Ellis. I'm supporting the ERP project as an analyst based on my role as a sponsored research consultant, finance manager in the College of Computing, School of Computer Science. Also assisting me today is Serena Simpson, who's also an ERP project as an analyst. And Serena currently works in grants and contracts accounting as a systems lead. So for today, we have two demonstrations we want to show you. The demos that we'll be doing today is pretty much similar to what we do today using the Web Grants Management tool as we do budget revisions to first request a new sub-project, and then also within that same tool to then move the money from one project to another. So for today's scenario, we'll use something that currently happens within the field where we have an existing award. Today's award is with the Office of Naval Research. It's a 3-year award worth $310,000. And with this award, we now want to add a new collaborator to this award. So the first demo will be using the request framework that Don talked about, and we'll request a new award line or a grant. And then the next demo, the second demo, will then be utilizing the budget amendment for organization function, in which we'll then move the money from the prime grant down to this new award for the collaborator. So here is our Workday home screen. So this is something that we'll all be utilizing. And as you see, as you move around your Workday home screen, you'll first see in the middle, down toward the bottom right, you'll see applications. Within the applications, you'll be able to do things based upon requests in which you'll be given the various requests that are available to use, as well as your favorites. Based upon the many functions that you do in Workday, you'll be able to save those favorites within your home page so that it can direct you directly to whatever you want to do. Also, if you look on the top left, you'll see the search icon. So that's how we'll utilize Workday today for this demonstration. And the search icon, just like Sandy said, if you can Google, you can Workday. Within Workday, all you need is just simple commands to begin your task. So you can use words like create, view, find, and those will then prompt you to then move forward within whatever you want to do. So for today's first demo, we'll just type in create and just say REQ. Then Workday will then give you all the various options within that. For this instance, we'll use create request. So we'll select that. And then the first question I'll ask you is the request type. And then we'll look at all the different request types that you'll be subject to use. In this instance, we'll use request type for a new award. So once we do that, we'll go to the bottom, we'll type in request. Okay. So then basically what it does is it sets up a new form for you. And again, this is a form where we're requesting new information or a new award. So the first question is an actual description or describe the request. In this instance, we want to be as detailed as possible because again, this is going to Grants and Contracts Central Office. So we want to make sure that we provide the information that's necessary so they can complete the request. So we'll be specific and we'll say for this instance, for today's date, we want to add a new collaborator, and that new collaborator is George Burdell. So we'll go to our next question. Next question asks, what is the existing Workday award number? Now, again, in these type of situations, normally in the field, we would have run our PEB report that then gives us all information for the project and the fund that we wanted to do. Workday will have that same type of reporting, so then we will look at the actual award and grant information that we need to make this transaction for. So by looking at my new report, I would know that the actual award number is AWD-001417. So we'll go ahead and enter that. And then we'll go to the next question, and it asks what is the purpose type of this award line request. And we want to add a new collaborator, George. So we'll select internal collaboration. Next question asks about the dates for this new award line. You can always use the actual dates for the award in this instance, or you can use dates based upon the situation. For this demonstration, we'll use 1/1/2019 and we'll go through 05/31/2019. The next question is, what is the amount that you'd like to associate with this new award line? For this demonstration, we know that we want to move salary for George Burdell, so we'll say we're going to move $60,000 worth of salaries. Again, this is just for the demonstration. In a normal situation, when we move money, we would move the salary with the associated fringe and F&A. But for this case, we're just going to move the salary just for demo purposes. So we're moving $60,000 worth of salary to this new award line. The next question asks, will the cost center remain the same as the cost center for the main award line? For this instance, we'll say yes. But however, if you did select no, if you were going to change and go to a new cost center, it would then prompt you to put that new cost center information into this box. But again, for this demonstration, we're going to say yes. Then we'll move on to the next question. Next question is, does the award line have cost share? The answer is no. We'll go to the next question is, will the award line become the primary award line? Again, the answer is no. This will not be the primary. Then the next question asks, is the PI on this award grant request the same as the primary PI? So since we know we're adding a new PI, so we're going to say no, and then it'll prompt us to then put in the name of the new PI, which is George Burdell. So at that, we've entered in all the information necessary for this request. There is another line that you can put additional information. And again, if there's pertinent information that you think grants and contracts accounting will need to complete this, then I would say go ahead and add it. There's also a line item for you to attach attachments. So anything that you can add that will, again, help speed up the process and give them all the information that they need would be fantastic. Once you've done all that, then you will submit this request. And again, this is a submittal to Grants and Contracts Central Office, in which they will now review the request and then create it. At that point, you can look right at, they'll give you a status of the details of that request that you just did. It shows you that the overall status is currently in progress. So that then lets you know that you've now submitted it, and now the ball is in Grants and Contracts Court. If you come the next day and you want to see the status again, you can go to your home page. And as you look at your home page, you can either look at your request line, and then you go into your request, and then you ask for my request. And then that then will give you basically a report or give you a look at all the requests that you've initiated. As you can see, there's a lot there. You can then do it in descending order, and then they'll show you that that last request that we just did on this date is currently in progress. So Workday gives you an opportunity to see exactly where you are in the process for it to be completed. Now, once that has been completed in Grants and Contracts, you'll then get a notification that it's been completed. And you'll see your notification on the top right-hand side of your homepage with the bell. If you click on that, then you'll get a notification like this that says your request has been completed. And it'll also give you all the pertinent information along with that request so that you can then move on to your next step. So once you've seen that, then you can go back into the system and make sure you have all the information you need so that you can go to the next phase of your step, which will be Demo 2, which is the budget amendment piece. So now that we know that it's been completed in Grants and Contracts, we've looked at it, gathered information that we need. We'll now go to our nice Georgia Tech icon, which takes us back to our home page, and then we'll do another transaction. In this situation, we're going to create a budget amendment. Again, all you have to do is create BUD, and it'll give you all the various options that are available to you. Here we'll select Create Budget Amendment by Organization. And again, another form comes up. First question is about the organization. So you'll look at your organization. In this instance, now you'll see the new grant information that you've had. So you'll select the new grant, which is Grant 003. And again, if you look at that grant, you'll see the little Twinkie on the side of the little 3 dots. We call it a Twinkie. That information, if you click on it, will then provide all the information regarding that grant or that award, in this instance, a grant. So you can see variously all the information that we've done. You'll see the prefix with the collaborator's name, George Burdell, and then all the other grant information that was just entered. So therefore, now you can take a look at exactly what's been entered. You can then go down to the next question, which is the budget structure. And then it'll give you all your budget structures. In this instance, budget structure will be an award. The next question is the company. And for us, the company will always be Georgia Institute of Technology. The next question is the budget name. And the budget name in this instance is also related to the actual award. And again, you have your report in front of you, so you would know that the award is AWD-001417. You've now entered all the information that's required to continue to do the budget amendment for organization. So you now go down to the bottom and select OK. At that point, then it will show you a new field that will show the information that you just entered, as well as some additional questions to be answered. But also you'll notice at the top right-hand side, it now shows you that award and all the budget information. It shows that it's for $310,000. There's been nothing spent on it, so you currently have a budget of $310,000. So now you go back to complete the form. The first question is the amendment date. It'll default to the current date, and again, that's a date that you can use. If there's a different date, then you can go ahead and change it. Next question is asking for a description of why you're doing this budget amendment. Again, you want to be as short but still as detailed as possible. In this instance, we'll just say to create a new budget for collaborator George Burdell. And then it asks you the amendment type. And again, since we're have information, we just want to transfer a budget. And basically, you're transferring it from the prime to this new grant line. The system also shows a default that's been checked for balanced amendment. That's another great function of Workday, where in this instance, it forces you to submit only a balanced budget. So therefore, if you're doing a transaction moving from one to another, if it's not in balance, it won't allow you to proceed. It'll give you a warning error or a warning message. So in this instance, we're only allowed to submit balanced budgets. So once we've entered everything else into our form, we can go down now to actually do the movement of the funds. And again, this is a two-step process, because basically, essentially what you're doing is you have budget already that's been allocated to the prime grant, and now you want to move it from that prime grant to your new grant for your collaborator. So in Workday, you'll have to do two steps. You have to do a negative transaction to reduce the prime, and then you'll do a positive transaction to now increase for the new grant. So now we'll go through it. First question asks for the period. And here the period is related to the award. So we'll slide over to the grant. And then you look for the grant. And again, it looks like it's timing a little slower now because this is a test environment, and production it's much faster. So the first transaction, we'll look for the prime grant, which is 02, because that's where we're going to first do the negative transaction. Then the next question is the object class, which is similar to the account code. So we'll look for the account class. And again, in this instance, we're just going to move salary. So we'll go to the first one. You'll see all the other codes are there. In this instance, we'll just use salary and wages. And then it tells you, based upon the prime grant, what dollars are currently available. And then it gives you an opportunity to either change that by percentage or dollar amount. In this instance, we'll do a negative $60,000. Then as you tab through, you'll see that Workday already does the math for you. So it's already reduced that $130,000 by $60,000, or you now have $70,000 remaining on that object class line item. So we've done the negative side. So now we'll go and add another line. And we'll answer the same questions. The period, again, being the award, the grant. The grant will now select the new grant for the collaborator. And there it is for 03 for George Burdell. And then the object class will again be the same for salaries and wages. So then we'll tab over, and you can see right now there's nothing budgeted for that. So then we'll go and we'll do the amount change of $60,000. And you'll see down the math is done. So you can see that you've now done a balanced budget because you've done 60,000 negative as well as 60,000 positive. You can also confirm that if you go to the top of the screen, the math has also been done. So you can see still my award balance is $310,000 and the budget total is still $310,000. So there's really no change. So that lets you know that you now have a balanced budget. You can go ahead and submit it. And here, once you submit it, this is a real-time transaction. So basically, once you've done this budget amendment, it doesn't go anywhere else. It's processed right there in Workday, right at the time that you submit you click the submit button. So now your information is now available and there for your use. So again, you don't have to wait for anything. It's real time. You now have access to look in Workday to see that the change has been made on your grant line, taken from the prime now to the new collaborator. And then you select done. And then you can move on. So now you've done demonstration 1, which was select the new or request the new award line. And we've also done demonstration 2 to move the funds. Now, let's see how that now looks as far as the new structure within Workday. So again, from what Don showed us, we know that we have awards, and all awards have to at least have one grant line, which is the prime. So now we'll see when we first started, we had award 001417 with one line, which was grant 02, which was the prime. And now based upon the request that we did and then the setup and the setup for the new grant, we now have another grant line or award line 2, which is grant 03, which is for our collaborator. I also noticed the naming within both, so now you can differentiate between not only the name, but also with the number. So that's what it now looks like in Workday. And now we're ready for closing remarks.
All right, thanks everyone. I just want to cover a few more things before we go into the Q&A session. So the first is I want to jump into the website real quick and show you where you can find some of the resources that we've been referencing today. So let's open that up. So again, our website URL is transformation.gatech.edu. You can also find it simply by Googling Transformation Georgia Tech or Workday Georgia Tech, and it's the first entry that pops up. So on this website, we've got a lot of great content, but there's 2 things I want to show you specifically. So the first is on the home page. Right at the bottom here, we have a panel where you can subscribe to our bi-monthly newsletter, the Workday Buzz. I'm sure many of you are already subscribed, but if not, you can come here and sign up or send this link to your colleagues and definitely sign up. It's a great way to stay in touch with the project. And it's only bi-monthly now, so you won't get spammed with the emails, don't worry. And then below that, we also have a panel down here for events and recent news. So right now it's all focused on grants, but once we launch the procurement sessions, this will swap out and you can come here and learn more about when the procurement sessions are. The second thing I want to show you quickly is our resources page. So today we've been referencing a lot of different materials such as previous webinars as well as handouts, and I wanted to show you where you could find them. So first, down here in our documents panel is this grants management definitions and terminology crosswalk. This reference goes hand in hand with this webinar today and will summarize very well all of the definitions we've gone over as well as the crosswalk between the different terminology. You can also scroll down here to this View Documents and Presentations panel. And in here, you can find the recordings for previous webinars. So we've talked about the expenses info sessions as well as the FDM overview info sessions. Both of them are in here. They're loaded into YouTube, closed captioning. It's a really nice way to go back and reference things like the demos or catch up in case you missed them. So now we'll wrap up the presentation today so that we can get started on Q&A. So after today, you will get an email from me with a link to a survey that will give you an opportunity to rank how we've met the objectives and to provide any feedback or any further questions you might have. In that email, you will also get a PDF version of today's slides as well as the handout link. So now let's go ahead and get started with Q&A. So in your BlueJeans window, you should see a button to the side that says chat. This is a space where you can enter in your questions that you may have for our panelists. And today we have a wonderful range of panelists that represent different process areas within the financials transformation, as well as specifically within grants and contracts. So go ahead and submit your questions via the chat box, and we will start taking them. So our first question here is, who will be able to access the PEB report, the future PEB report?
Right now, it will be everybody who has access to the current PEB report. So that is anybody who is PI, as well as there are about 800 named users who have access to that current report. So there's, I think it's going to be around 2,200 users actually who will have access to the PEB report. This is Dan Hopkinson, by the way, reporting lead from EDM, Enterprise Data Management.
Thank you, Dan. All right, another question that's come in. When setting up salary changes, can you add a line for fringe?
Hi, this is Jennifer Camp, and if you're referencing back to the budget amendment for organization process that we demonstrated, the answer is yes. You will have access to all of the different spend categories, including fringe benefits if you'd like to move budget in between those categories.
All right, next question. For subawards, will you be able to see the status of purchase orders of the invoices in Workday?
Yes, this is Don Cochran. Subawards will have much more transparency in Workday. We'll be able to see a lot more information about the status and the status in the lines of those purchase orders. Thank you.
Okay, next question. Do our sponsored budget amendment requests automatically get approved, or is sponsored approval needed first?
This is Jennifer. Great question. Anyone who has authorization to submit the budget amendment for organization request should be working under the expectation that you have reviewed federal guidelines, institute policies, state guidelines, contract terms and conditions, agency guidelines. So those same rules are still in place, that all of that must be evaluated first before taking that action from the department's perspective. Once it's submitted, if it nets to zero, there would not be additional approval required from the central office for that action that's taken.
All right, next question. If we continue to use SPDs in PeopleSoft for salary changes, will the new or old project numbers be used?
I'll take this one. This is Sandy Mason. The expectation for July with the PeopleSoft launch is that SPD will be used in its current form with the exception of where you would now enter a project number. Come July, you will enter the Workday work tag, driver work tag.
All right, one more question. Will we have the ability to track the different dollar amounts in regards to cost share?
This is Jennifer, and the answer is yes. We will be tracking cost share that is required by the sponsor. Our intent is to set up a separate grant within the award in order to track cost share. And the appropriate work tag for the funding source that funds that cost share would be selected for that grant.
So the next question is, will the restrictions also apply to the budget revision?
So regarding spend restrictions, that would be applicable only when you're transacting on the grant. It is not applicable to the budget revision process.
Next question, who is a grant manager?
This is Don Cochran. Grants managers will be assigned from the units. It'll be usually an accounting professional in the unit who works closely with the researcher. Yes, we want to share a little more about the grants manager. As far as the assignments of those roles, we're currently working with the FDM Foundation Data Model team, who is working with all of you in the various units to gather the right people to associate with each grant.
All right, we'll give another second for any last minute questions. And it looks like that's what we've got for now. So thank you all so much for submitting your questions. In case anything comes up later, this is our help desk email. It's erp.ask@gatech.edu. There are real people behind this email. Your question will get routed to the process lead that is responsible for the area that your question pertains to. You can also check out our website again at transformation.gatech.edu. We thank you all so much for attending, and we look forward to seeing you at the procurement info sessions coming up in March. Thank you.